Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. Today in the studio, we have Dr. Amit Patel. He's a motivational speaker, an author, and an advocate for the blind and visually impaired. As I was setting up for this podcast, a friend of mine who's on the road most of the time, he's a truck driver of an 18-wheeler driving from the Midwest all the way to the West Coast and beyond, contacted me about this video he saw. Little did he know, I was already in talks with Dr. Amit Patel and creating this podcast. But we got chatting back and forth, and as a truck driver, he's sighted, and thank gosh for everybody on the road, but he gets it. He really gets it. You may wonder what those truck drivers are thinking about on those long roads, getting that white line fever. Well, Kingfish is thinking about the blindness community and thinking about Dr. Amit Patel. Here's a little clip from Kingfish to lead us out. Hope you enjoy.
This guy's story, just the way he carries himself, the demeanor he has, his seriousness. Yeah, there's something about this guy that just screams greatness. Here's the thing though, it's not a blind story. It's not a blind story. It's not a story about a blind man. It's a story about a man who's doing what he wants to do, who's set a goal for himself and is doing it. It doesn't matter that he's blind. I mean, that's just another obstacle, but that doesn't define who he is. That's just like he's tall or he's short or whatever. This guy doesn't take any shit. I like that. He's not defined by that. I'm not saying it right, but I think you know what I mean. Just like you, man. I don't think of you as a blind guy. I think of you as the audio guy, Sure, I'm sure you have some obstacles that you have to deal with because of it, but it doesn't stop you from doing what you want to do. Awesome. I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks, Kingfish, for the intro. And keep those 18 wheels out there on the road. Safe driving to all you truck drivers.
Do you know what I use? I use my disability as a way of trying to educate people. I think we exist. You may never have encountered a blind person before, but I'm hoping that maybe even a 5-minute conversation with me will open someone's eyes.
Please welcome Dr. Amit Patel.
I think you adapt. It's not long since I lost my sight, but I've adapted very quickly. And I think that definitely helps, but it's tiring. You will know it's doing a basic task takes a lot more brain power than if you're sighted.
Author, motivational speaker, and a strong advocate for the blind and visually impaired. Here's the big question. As a doctor, did you ever practice your handwriting?
The only people who can read my handwriting were other doctors and nurses. To be honest, I think I even struggle reading some of my handwriting, but I think probably my handwriting is probably better now as a blind person than it was, because in my head I kind of know I have to make it very obvious what I'm trying to write.
Follow Dr. Amit Patel on Twitter at blinddad_UK.
Since the day I actually lost my sight, it would be every morning thinking, right, today is going to be the day I can see again. And you pin everything on that, and it just doesn't happen. Then the next day you pin everything. And it got to a stage where I just couldn't. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I didn't want to go through the whole day not being able to see.
Dr. Amit Patel is a husband, a father, a son, and a friend of many.
But then you have your bad experiences. I remember actually walking along a busy train platform. I knew where to go to catch my train. So I was walking along the platform and I accidentally tapped someone's shoe. And this person turned around, took my cane out of my hand and threw it on the train track as the train was coming through.
Download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store and on Google Play. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. You can also enable the Blind Abilities skill on your Amazon device. Just say, enable Blind Abilities.
There's nothing you can't achieve. I think you kind of put your own barriers in front of you.
Please welcome Dr. Amit Patel.
I'm out there. I'm trying to spread the word, the message that, being blind doesn't stop you from being who you are. That, it should never stop you from doing what you want to do in life.
Harder in nine. Tighter. Get it back. Gas. Come on! Get Get in!
The GT86 drives in a straight line along the track. Dr. Amit Patel lost his sight in 2013. He was forced to give up his career as an emergency first response driver. He hasn't been behind the wheel of a car since. Until now.
So you got the Toyota parked right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I think I've misplaced the keys.
That might be a good thing.
Oh, do you know what? My wife does hide the keys.
I don't blame her. Well, that's good. Well, if she keeps the keys hidden, you might be able to see your book published, right?
This is it. Hopefully.
I just saw something on Twitter about your anticipating the book.
Yeah, we have just finalized the front cover just about 20 minutes ago. So yeah, exciting times. Book's out in February next year.
Someone asked for a photo of me for this one article, and I find that very challenging to me. Yeah, are my eyes open? Am I looking at the camera? Yeah,
yes.
None of that.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? I have the same thing. So I don't have any vision whatsoever, and I've forgotten what I look like. So it's kind of weird when I'm giving a presentation and someone said, "Oh, there's a big photo of you in the background." I'm thinking, what do I actually look like? What do people see? You know, am I the same as what the photo is? It's who I am now. It's just such strange concepts.
Yeah. A gentleman sent me, he's a truck driver. He drives all over, and he calls it his midlife crisis car.
Yes. Yes.
He has a vintage, I think it's a 1928 with a hot rod motor in it. And
oh, lovely.
so he likes the feel of the vehicle, the sound, and he was wondering if you ever, while you're driving that, getting the feel of the shifting, the turning.
Do you know what? It was that. So before I got into the Toyota GT86, they let me loose in a Toyota hybrid, which for me, it doesn't make sense because when I used to drive, so I used to be a rapid response paramedic, a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained to drive very quickly, very safely. I would use the revs, I would use the gear shift, I would use the brakes. All of this would be my experience of driving. And when I got into the hybrid, it was like a go-kart. It was an automatic. There was no feel of the steering. There was no feel of the pedals. You put your foot down and you go and you have this buzzing noise and then you stop. But when I got into the GT86, it was the rumble of the engine. It was the smell of the leather. It envelops you, that whole experience. And I think that's what it was. It wasn't so much the driving quickly. It was actually feeling that vibration on my hands on the steering wheel as I turned the corner, as I short shifted on the gears.
6 years or so since I've been behind the wheel of a car. And it's funny how quickly things get back to you. You know, the sound of the engine, the gear changes, the clutch, the brake. But then driving and not knowing where you're driving, that's the insane part.
Amit practices his lap while instructor Mark provides information regarding the route.
As I did it so well, you know, because I'm not concentrating on the road anymore. I'm concentrating on actually driving the car. And the funny thing is, I think it made me a better driver because I didn't have to focus. I was listening to Mark on my left-hand side, just saying left Amit, right Amit, 90 right, 90 left. And by the end of it, I can anticipate what he was saying before he said it. But that's what I was concentrating. But I was concentrating on the gear changes, on the smoothness, making sure the revs were just right, just as I changed the gear, hitting the apex on a corner, hitting the rumble strips as we're taking the bend, and making sure I hit that strip every single time.
Right a bit, left a bit.
To be behind the engine of a fast car, knowing full well I'm in control, it feels like I'm floating. I feel the engine, I feel the vibrations, and you know what? I feel powerful. I feel like I did when I was a teenager back in a car.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
So not seeing the track actually for me was great because it meant I could focus on the car and actually focus on the driving.
And that's kind of like blindness itself, is that anticipating, thinking ahead as you go about your daily chores, all your activities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people say to me, you know, you look very confident when you're out and about. You know, I may look confident, but in my head, I've got 20 scenarios going. I know where I am. You know, I know what's approaching me. I know I'm going to be coming up to a curb. But yeah, I think you adapt. So, you know, it's not long since I lost my sight, but I've adapted very quickly. And I think that definitely helps. But it's tiring. you will know it's doing a basic task takes a lot more brain power than if you're sighted. And by the evening, I'm wiped.
And that's coming from a doctor saying that.
Oh, the doctor in me is the stubbornness in me. I like to have a goal and I like to achieve it. So that's how I've always done things in my life.
Here's the big question. As a doctor, did you ever practice your handwriting?
The only people who could read my handwriting were other doctors and nurses. To be honest, I think I even struggle reading some of my handwriting. But I think probably my handwriting is probably better now as a blind person than it was, because in my head I kind of know I have to make it very obvious what I'm trying to write. But yeah, no, I have doctor's handwriting.
Yeah, you make a great point that it's the thinking, the amount of contemplating that you have to do to foresee things. Even though you can't see it, you have to project. You have to have an idea of where you're going, what you're doing, everything. It's not just whistling Dixie as you're walking along. You actually are concentrating. And then someone wants to talk to you as you're walking. So that's a whole nother level.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And especially when you have a guide dog as well. You know, I could be on a crossroad thinking, do I need to take a right? Do I need to go left? Or do I need to go straight over? And as you're thinking about this, someone will come over and go, oh, nice doggy. Hello. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know where I am anymore. But yeah. Or the best one, the one thing I never really thought about when I lost my sight is how lonely it could be when you can't see anybody around you. So I remember when I was learning to use my long white cane, I would get to a busy junction and then I would have to stop because I have to compose myself. I know I need to cross the road or I need to take a right or a left. But before I can even think, a little old lady will come along, link arms with me and take me across the road and say, there you go, my love, and walk away. And I'm thinking to myself, is this where I need to be? Or do I need to actually just take a right? And then I have to find someone to take me across the road again, just so I can start my journey. But it's funny. People think they do a lot of good, which to me, do you know what? If someone's willing to help, that's fantastic. But sometimes you don't want that help.
Yeah, sometimes you're caught off guard when all of a sudden the help comes. It's not always when you, like, there should be like a little light above our head, like a taxi used to have, like when I'm ready for help, this light will come on and that would help everybody.
Would you believe someone actually told me just the other day, I was in a busy train and someone said to me, you should wear a high-vis jacket so people could tell you're blind. And I said, how would you know I'm blind if I wore just a jacket? Because they couldn't see my dog. My dog was stuck in the, she was laying down next to me. And I said, how would you know I was blind if I just wore a jacket? And they said, you should write on the jacket saying, I am blind. And I'm like, seriously? I'm like, do we really need to do this? Do I really need to announce that I'm blind for someone to move out my way? Isn't it obvious that I'm walking around with a guide dog with a high-vis jacket on her,
It does make you wonder what, like, you 6-7 years ago, I believe it was, you could see perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you notice the blind before you went blind?
Do you know what? I don't think I did. Me and my wife had this conversation. I worked in central London. I took the train, I took the tube, I drove, and the only people I actually interacted who were visually impaired were patients. I don't think I actually saw that many guide dogs. I didn't see a lot of cane users out and about. But I think if I did see someone who needed help, I think I would be the first one there. I think it's that whole doctor thing in me. You're always looking to help someone, regardless if they want help or not. So you're the first one there. But I don't think I did see that many people. I think being blind has kind of opened my eyes. Excuse the pun, but I've noticed. I live in a whole different community now.
Yeah.
I guess when you're not going through anything like that, you don't really have to think about it. I used to interact with people with mobility issues, blindness, hearing impairments, all through work. But once I left work, I don't think it really came into my life.
Now, when you're sitting outside somewhere and you hear a cane tapping, bang, you catch that right away.
Bang, straight away. Absolutely. I say to my wife sometimes when we're out and about, oh, there's a cane user behind us. And she goes, oh, how do you know? And you just distinctively just pick it up. It's like a radar.
Yeah, it's like white noise. There's noise that you don't have to pay attention to as you're going along. It seems like that is now all the information we use. We use all that, and now there's another layer of white noise, another layer. I think it's all in defense, but you do pay attention to so much more.
You do. And you know what? My ability to bump into another blind person is amazing. I can be absolutely anywhere and I could literally bump into another blind person. I don't know how I do it, but it happens too often.
And yet I did the same thing before I went blind. I think I remember one person walking with a cane, and I remember watching him across the street for, might have been 3 seconds, but it's in my mind now, it seems like an hour. But I just, And I went, huh. And then my life went on.
That's it. Do you know what I use? I use my disability as a way of trying to educate people. I think we exist. You may never have encountered a blind person before, but I'm hoping that maybe even a 5-minute conversation with me will open someone's eyes and make them think slightly differently.
And that's it. We become ambassadors to the blindness community. We're like a gateway that people can find out more. And that's why it's kind of neat to gain some skills and confidence to be out there and be prepared for that, because it does happen.
Absolutely. It does. And you know what? It can happen to anybody. This is the thing. A lot of people I come across say, I'll never lose my sight, or this will never happen to me. Ask me 10 years ago, I would have said the same thing. But it does, and it's you have to get on with it. And I think getting with it is the difficult part. I think you have to acknowledge that. For me, I personally, it was heartbreaking when I lost my sight. Being a doctor, I was the one people used to come and ask for help, and now I have to go and ask for help from others. And I found that really difficult. But I also thought that I lost my sight so quickly. I lost it overnight, and I put my doctor's hat on and I thought, okay, what can we do? Realistically, I knew there was nothing we could do, but you're still kind of grasping onto hope. So it can happen to anybody, and it does happen to everybody. It doesn't have to be sight loss. It could be anything traumatic in your life. But I think once you get to a point where you want to help yourself, I think it becomes easier.
We're talking to Dr. Amit Patel. I came across him in a Toyota video of him driving, operating. He was on the wrong side, I believe, of the cockpit, but he was driving this. And you said something in there that relates to what you were just saying, that you were always expecting maybe, a cure or a solution to this blindness. And when did you accept blindness?
Since the day I actually lost my sight, it would be every morning thinking, right, today's going to be the day I can see again. And you pin everything on that, and it just doesn't happen. Then the next day you pin everything. And it got to a stage where I just couldn't. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I didn't want to go through the whole day not being able to see. And I'm pretty strong mentally and physically. But one day I cried in front of my dad. I said to my dad, Dad, why has this happened to me? What have I done so wrong in my life for this, to happen to me? And my dad, being my dad, all he had to do was put his arms around me and say, because you can get through this. That was it. He said, because you can get through this, that's why you're going through this. You're going to be able to help others from your experiences. And for me, that was a life-changing point. I woke up thinking, right, I need help. I need to be able to get back on my feet. And I lost my sight very soon after getting married. It was just over a year after getting married. So me and my wife had amazing dreams. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to live. And we were still in that honeymoon period in our marriage. And the lights went out. So for me, it was, well, is my wife going to stay? Or is she going to walk? How hard is it for her? So you kind of put all of this pressure on yourself, but you forget to ask for help because you're all consumed within your own head about what you can do, what you can achieve, what is life going to be like now as a blind person. But you actually forget to let people in. And I think when I let everybody back into my life, it became easier.
What was her transition like to adjust?
Oh, do you know what? Me and my wife are chalk and cheese. So if I want to do something, I will do it. My wife's she will get her notebook out. She will plan things way in advance. So when I lost my sight, my wife had to take over. My wife had to get the doctor's appointments together. My wife had to drive me to the appointments because there was no way I could do things on my own. Because I went from being a confident guy to being a little child who needed everything doing for him. So my wife had to step in, and that took a huge amount of pressure on her because also her seeing me go through this, she wasn't sure what to say and what to do. She didn't want to be patronizing. She didn't want to upset me. So she would always think about what she was saying before she said it. It wasn't an organic conversation. It was very much a structured conversation. How are you? How are you doing? Let's get you this. Let's get you that. I think I think genuinely she thought she lost the person she married. But I think with my help, and I say this in the Toyota video, it was my wife that got me back on my feet again. It was my wife who came and gave me the hugs and the cuddles and the reassurance that I needed. Because you have your good days, you have your bad days, and then you have your terrible days. And that's where my wife was just amazing. She knew exactly what to say, what to do. But not everybody has this. And this is why I do a lot of my campaigning, because I'm very lucky. I have an amazing wife who stood up and took charge and got me back on my feet. There's a lot of people who go through this on their own. And I like to do my campaigning out there to tell people that, you don't have to be alone. You do have to let people into your life, and you do, and it does become easier. It is difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, losing your sight and getting back on your feet again, learning to use a white cane, learning to read Braille, or you learning tech all over again. It isn't. It's difficult, but you can do this, but you don't have to do it alone.
That's a great message to people. How did you start in learning some of the skills that you're using today? What was your first steps?
So I started I think it would be my white cane lessons around about 6 months after I lost my sight. For the first 6 months, I had no confidence. I didn't want to leave the house at all. And it took me about 6 months to build that confidence to actually go and get white cane lessons. But the lady I went to see to get my cane lessons, she also said, right, Amit, we're not just going to do cane lessons. I'm going to teach you Braille as well. And I think she understood that I needed to focus on something. I can just have a couple of lessons a week with my white cane and then be left at home. She understood that my mind needed to focus on something, and to try and read Braille meant I could do it on my own, be at home and actually focus. And it was people, I'm very lucky. I've had amazing people in my life. People have inspired me. People have seen probably more than what I've kind of let on. They've kind of understood what I'm trying to say, even in a quick conversation. And they understand that I need that motivation. I need something to focus on. And they've been there. So Braille and cane lessons were the two things I started doing. As soon as I was comfortable with my cane, I was out and about. We live in central London, so it's always busy. But I always used to say sorry to a lamppost, to a letterbox, because you just don't know if you've tapped someone. But then you have your bad experiences. I remember actually walking along a busy train platform. I knew where to go to catch my train. So I was walking along the platform and I accidentally tapped someone's shoe. And this person turned around, took my cane out of my hand and threw it on the train track as the train was coming through. And all you heard was this mighty crack as the train split my cane in two. The rest of the platform, there must have been at least 150 people on that platform, all gasped because they all saw what happened. And then the next conversation was, should we help him or should we get on the train? Every single member on that platform got on the train. Not one person turned around and said, we should help the blind guy who's lost his white cane.
Oh my gosh.
So I've seen the good side of London and I've seen the bad side of London. And that stopped me from going out for 3 months because I just couldn't face the world again. So you have your good days and you have your bad days. It's never easy. And even now I walk out with a confident smile on my face. But the moment you step out your house, you're in someone else's world. That's how I feel. You can't control anything. In my house, I walk around. I know where everything is. I have a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. I can change nappies. I can change their clothes. I can give them baths. I can feed them. But the moment I step out my house, it's a whole different ballgame.
And that's where confidence comes in. I mean, you can't change the inevitable of a jerk or mob mentality as they all got onto the train. And yet I know what you mean by in your house. It's a huge comfort zone. Yeah. But I tell you what, with kids, that's a whole nother area.
Oh, absolutely. Lego. Lego is a minefield.
Yes, it is.
It's got to a point now where if Daddy stubs his toe on Lego or he walks on Lego, that Lego now goes in the bin. That's how my son was taught. And now at the end of his play session, everything is all tidied up. He's very good at that now. But he had to learn.
Yeah, now that they're going to have Braille on Lego, it's even going to be a little sharper.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to try that out.
Yeah, I hope they make it available to the public. I know they're going to start out by making it available to educational practices, places.
Yes, so there's a couple of colleges in the UK which are receiving the Legos. So it'll be great to actually hear the feedback.
Yeah, that is exciting. I was really excited to learn more about that drive. How did the Toyota drive? I mean, Toyota wasn't just saying, hey, we need a blind guy. You actually pursued it. Absolutely.
The one thing I miss is the freedom of jumping in my car. I used to love driving, and I still do. I'm very passionate about driving. I'm a massive fan of Top Gear. Any car programs, I love that. I would spend ages just cleaning and valeting my own car on a weekend. And when I lost my sight, I kind of lost that freedom. One day, I realized that the head of Toyota's PR was following me on Twitter. And I said to my wife, oh, do you know what? Toyota have a big headquarters in Surrey, and I know they probably have a big car park. And I said to my wife, would it be cheeky if I asked if I can jump in a car and just drive around their car park? And my wife said, oh, you can give it a go. And the reason I actually chose Toyota is because they're a huge sponsor of the Paralympics. And they talk about, a lot of their advertising talks about a car isn't just for the driver, it's the whole experience, it's for the whole family. So I thought, you know what, it might be cheeky, but let me give it a go. So I sent a private message to the head of PR, Scott Brownlee, and I said, thank you for following me. You know who I am. Any chance I can jump in a car and just drive it around your car park? And I thought I'd never hear anything back. Within about a day or so, I got a message saying, leave it with me. And that was it. And I think about a couple of months passed, and then we got a phone call saying, Amit, can you be at this, I think it was a disused airfield. It was a disused American airbase, actually, in Oxford. And I think it was the location where they filmed Fast and Furious. They said, there's plenty of runway. Would you meet us there one morning and we can get you into a car? And I thought, fantastic. So we got to the aerodrome and they put me in the electric car. We had about 5 minutes in this electric car. And I had a co-driver who was an ex-rally driver. And he said to me, Amit, I'm going to give you a countdown when I want you to turn left and right. So he's going, in 3, 2, 1, take a left, 3, 2, 1, take a right. And within a few minutes, he realized that I'm just listening to him. I'm not concentrating on the road or anything. So he basically said, look, if I just say right or left, 90 or 45 degrees, can you manage that? And we did. And we're taking the car up to about 30, 40 miles an hour. And after about 15, 20 minutes, we stopped. And he said, how did you like that? And I said, I hated it. I said, there's no gear changes. I can't feel the car. It feels like I'm in a go-kart. And he walked away and he spoke to Toyota and he said, I think Amit's ready for the GT86, which I didn't realize they had the GT86 ready. And he said, let's take a bit of a spin on that. So we spent, I think, 2 hours in that car, just driving up and down the runway, doing donuts. I think we hit about 85, 86 miles an hour. And I thought that was the end of it. And we had a whole day of driving. I thought, fantastic. I'm never going to experience this again. I then get a call from Toyota saying, Amit, we supply the car to Top Gear for the celebrities to do their fast laps in. Would you like to take part in it? So you could be the blind guy in a reasonably fast car. And there was no way I was going to say no to this. So I made my way to the studio to where they filmed. And they had a whole film crew there. They had drone operators. They had the emergency services. They had the actual car that even Tom Cruise drove around the test track in. And the only requirement was, Amit, don't total the car. We need it for filming in the next couple of days. So I was partnered with Mark Watkins, who was the gentleman in the car with me. And they said, look, you don't have to do it fast. Just go around the track. It'll be great if you can enjoy it. Don't worry about the timings or anything. But I'm a very, very competitive guy. So I basically said to Mark, look, we've got to do this. We're never going to get this opportunity again. Let's just see what we can do. But unfortunately, the day we were test driving the car, it was raining. So the track was completely wet. But we did a couple of good times. And then the day afterwards was the day we were actually going to film the fast lap. And it was dry. We actually got the ambulance to go around the test track about 3 or 4 times just to clear the water. And we even had the fire engine go around a few times as well, just to make the track a little bit drier for us. But you would not believe the day of filming, pushing the start-stop button on the car to turn the engine on, that roar, knowing full well who had sat in the same seat as I did. And Top Gear is one of those programs that's broadcast everywhere. I remember being in the States and watching Top Gear.
A friend of mine is totally blind, and he drove on Top Gear. He parked the car by spinning it into between 2 cones. It was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But this is it. It's, Top Gear is one of those programs where you watch and think, I can do better than that. And to actually sit in the car that's actually used for Top Gear. And this car had no modifications. So it was a normal standard car. There was no additional brakes or anything at all. Mark had no control on this. But we were, at one point, we were so in tune, just as he said left, the steering went to the left, gear changes were spot on. But it was the most amazing feeling. I walked out of there thinking, I need to do this again. I need this rush in my life.
How long was it before you start trusting Mark? I mean, you're driving a hunk of metal down a road with a lot of power, and you trust.
Trust is a big thing. Listen, I think it worked with me and Mark because I trusted him. And I knew that from the test day we had in Oxford months before the Top Gear driving. And it was the banter. It was the fact that he trusted me as well. He never grabbed the steering wheel. He never grabbed the handbrake. He was always precise on his instructions. And would you believe, even through the test drive, even practicing the laps for Top Gear, we're having a conversation as we're driving the car. So it got to that point. It got to the point where we were not 100% focusing on what we should be doing, but we're just, how was your weekend, Mark? How are you doing? How's the family doing? As we're doing 100 down the runway. But I think it is all trust. And Mark was crazy. I think he got as much as a rush as I did. I remember actually turning up to the day where we were going to start the filming, but Mark had driven in 3 hours ahead of time because he was that excited. He had a 3-hour drive, but got there 3 hours early just because he was super excited to do this. And we were like two giddy school kids in the car because we knew just what an opportunity we had. But yeah, we're always joking. And I was saying to Mark, the next thing we're going to have to do is the Nurburgring.
One of the things that I remember specifically on that drive was he wanted you to keep it in gear as far as you could get it up to the revs before you shifted, so you didn't waste any energy. What was that like, that experience?
Oh, do you know what? It was my head. So my hand was on the gear shift most of the time. A lot of the driving, it was one hand, because there's so many corners, so many gear shifts as well. He wanted to eke out every millisecond that we could. He wanted to get that sweet spot every single time. So knowing full well that we were recording the fast lap and it was the only time we're going to record it, it's that whole anticipation. I'm ready to go, but he would just, damn it.
Let it rest
Just a few more seconds, a few more. Just hold it now.
Change.
And that was it.
Good. Tighter. That's it, to the left.
Driving the GT86, I can feel everything through my fingers, through my feet. I can hear the car, I can hear the engine, I can feel the power.
It got to a stage where I didn't have to really think about anything. I would just listen to Mark and let him give me the instructions. And I was basically his hands and his feet. And it worked. It really did work. I think I had a bit of a cry afterwards, and I think he had a bit of a cry as well.
That's really neat that someone that's sighted is just excited for you, and they are excited as much to accomplish this, to take on the challenge. And like you said, and being an advocate or out there campaigning and trying to educate people who may not be aware of the challenges that we have, it's neat when you connect like that.
This is it. I'm very fortunate to meet some inspiring people along my sight loss journey. And even though Mark isn't visually impaired, to me, he's an inspiration because he believed in me. And I think sometimes that belief kind of gives you that energy, to know full well that people believe in you, believe in your ability to do something. That was it. I went into the driving experience on the morning thinking I'm going to let everybody down. Toyota have supplied the car. They've got film crew in. They've closed the track off for the day. They've got everything in place. They've got the emergency services. The last thing I wanted to do was go in there, sit in the car and think, oh my God, I can't do this, and let fear get into the way. And I was very honest with them as well at the beginning, saying that, I might get in the car. And that at the moment, it's all adrenaline talking, but I might sit in that car and just decide that I can't do it. The pressure's just too much. But having Mark as my co-pilot next to me, just reassuring me that, Amit, just take it easy. Let's just get this done. Let's get round the first bend and see what we can do. It's having that kind of push without actually physically pushing me, giving me that inspiration, giving me that hope that I can do it, and giving me that self-control and self-belief that it can be done. I think that's a huge part.
What was it like when you broke the 2-minute mark?
Did
you feel it? Did you know you were better than 2?
No. That concept of time is what I've lost since losing my sight. It's crazy. We would be on the radios asking them, how fast have we done? Where can we beat where it's off, or where can we beat another half a second? And it was, I don't know why we were so quick, but we were. But I think that was pure adrenaline going.
Let it go on, bit of gas, over the finish. Come on, get in.
At that time, I don't think I had any concept of time. And the fact that we, I think we were 5th on the leaderboard, which was absolutely insane. And I always joke, I always say to everybody that, I had Mark as my ballast in the car. If I didn't have Mark, I could have done a good 5 seconds quicker. So next time we try it, maybe Mark could be on the radio as opposed to being in the car. But
oh, that would be cool.
Wouldn't that be? But you know what? I would take my time. Even now, the crew were amazing. All the crew did at the end of it was sign their names on my helmet and actually put the time on. And they gave me the helmet.
Oh, wow.
And probably once, twice a week, when I need that little bit of motivation, that sometimes I wake up in the morning and think, well, work's really tough. Can I do this? I travel a lot for work. And sometimes I think, wow, is this just too much for me? I would sit in front of my TV. I would put the surround sound on. I would put my helmet on and I would listen to the audio described version of that lap with the bass box just booming, vibrating with the surround sound going. It takes me back to where I was. And I think I can do this.
I thought that was really great. The first thing I saw was the YouTube video from Toyota about your experience. And then I saw in the show notes that there's an audio described version. And that was even better. I went to that and it's like, talking about how your hands are on the wheel or whatever it was saying. That was cool.
This is it. The lady who did the audio description for the video, she sent me a message and said that she played it over and over again in her home studio just to make sure she got every last emotion into there. And I love her for that. So that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I got to hand it to Toyota to do this. To them, it must have been a challenge. I'm sure a lot of the camera crew and said, say what? We're going to do what? A perfectly good car?
This is. There was one gentleman there actually, and his job was to make sure the car was running at its best. And he did say to me, Amit, just we haven't got any more cars. I don't have a spare wing for the car or anything at all. So please, just don't dent it. So I think Toyota saw it as a challenge. So Toyota have this hashtag called Start Your Impossible, and they use that for their Paralympics. Mm. I'm very, very fortunate that when they did the edits for the video and it went into, I think, the managers or the CEO, whoever saw this video, they said this video has to have the tag Start Your Impossible. And for me, that says it all. It was the start of my impossible, because you don't get blind guys driving around racetracks where able people do. That doesn't happen every day. Blind guys have driving experiences. You can drive around a disused airfield, but you don't do it competitively. And for Toyota to give me that opportunity and actually give me the trust and the belief that I could do this was absolutely amazing, because I don't think it came cheap. I'm very lucky they haven't billed me for it, because I know it hasn't come cheap. But it's that whole, we believe in you, we can do this, and we've never done it before. Let's give it a go.
That's awesome. There's only two other people I know that have kind of competitively done it. It's Brian Fisher and Dan Parker, world's fastest. Now it's Dr. Amit Patel is right in that category. I was excited. When I heard that 149, I was like going, yes, he did it. It must have been exciting. Now, you mentioned you do a lot of traveling for work. What kind of work are you doing today? So
today, we've got I have been judging candidates, finalists for the See Ability Award. It's for the RNIB, which is a national eye charity here in the UK. Mm-hmm. I've been going through the nominations and shortlisting and doing my top 3. So I've been working from home today, but I've also gone to see a school that my son may start in next September. So we went to do a school visit, which was quite challenging. 300-400 school kids, and me and my guide dog and my wife with a buggy with a 3-month-old, looking at prospective schools. But I actually do a lot of work around the UK. I talk about diversity, inclusion. I do motivational speaking. I do a lot of corporate events talking about how disability can actually up your workforce. Never dismiss someone because of their disability. The way I think about something is completely different to the way an able person thinks about something. Tap into this. And not all disabled people, sit at home all day. A lot of us have careers. We have experiences, we have skills, and the workforce need to tap into it. So there's a lot of work. There's a trip coming up. We're going out to the States, actually. We're going to New York in about 3 weeks' time for a couple of conferences, a couple of talks. So it's just busy. Constantly busy. Are you still doing the doctor stuff? I'm not practicing. Still interested in everything that goes on. But you never know. In a couple of years, might go back. Well, when your kids catch a cold or something, I'm sure. I will fix up a finger. I will suture. I will do all of that. No problem at all. I can do that with my eyes closed. But practicing in a hospital, give it a couple of years. That's interesting when you say I can do that with my eyes closed. I mean, I used to use that statement. I can do that with my eyes closed. Well, I'm doing it. Yep, that's it.
Well, that's really something. I mean, to think where you've come in such a short amount of time and getting involved. And I think, as you said before, once you got your cane, you were out. You got out of that comfort zone of your own home, but you went out. And I think meeting up with other blind people and injecting yourself into the arena, the workforce, the organizations that are helping the blind, and just talking to other peers in the blindness community really keeps you out there.
Oh, absolutely. I had no experience of sight loss before I went through it. So to talk to other people who have gone through it or who are going through it, and that we can go through it together and actually support each other, I think that's a huge thing. It's simple things. It's how do you make a cup of coffee in the morning? Do you put your finger in the cup? Do you burn your finger every day? I didn't know there was anything like a liquid level indicator, which you pop into your cup and it starts beeping. And it's small things. It's finding the supports. It's getting people. It's when someone turns around and says, "Oh, Amit, have you tried it this way?" Oh, yeah, it's changed my life forever. It's the small thing. Once you start learning the small things, because losing my sight, I felt I had to start all over again, even walking in a straight line when I lost my sight. You forget about what you do when you're sighted. You wake up in the morning, you get up, you do what you want. When you're visually impaired, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to think about everything. Everything has to be in its right place. But to have people around me to say, well, we've been there, don't worry, you get through this, or this is the people you need to contact, these are people you need to get help from. And the reason I do all of my campaigning is because we've been through all of this, and we've had barriers and hurdles which we've had to overcome. And sometimes these barriers and hurdles don't really need to be there. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult getting the help you need. So we work with a lot of organizations to make things a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier.
You make a great point about organized. Things should be where you expect them to be. And that was one of the toughest things for me to realize, that just being near is not good enough. Just like, using GPS to get to a location gets you gets you close, gets you pretty close. Yeah. But even when you set something down, like a twisty tie around a bag where the bread comes in, that thing can disappear in seconds.
Absolutely. Do you know what? That used to frustrate me. I used to get so frustrated when I couldn't do the simple things. And you forget, in our house, we have our own way of doing things. I remember when I lost my sight, my mum used to come around and say, I'll move the coffee pot over here and I'll put the sugar over here. And I have to say to my mum, "No, Mum, you can't clean my house. You can't move things around because I'll just never find it again." It's funny that people walk into my house expecting to see modifications, handrails, or I don't know what people expect to see, but they say to me, "Oh, it doesn't look like a blind person lives here."
I wonder what that really looks like.
Well, this is it. My house is clean because it has to be, because everything has its place. Everything goes back in its place. But we have lots of photos on our walls. We have lots of memories everywhere from our holidays, but people, I don't know, I think they think that's going into a blind person's house, the walls are bare, there's nothing coordinated. And it's funny when we have these conversations, like, "Oh, your cushions match your sofa." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's nice." But yeah, they forget about my wife could see.
You've had to accept it at some point, because there's some major steps a lot of people think about in their lifetime as a blind person is, should I have kids or not? But now you're a dad. I mean, your Twitter handle,
Blind Dad UK. Yeah, Blind Dad UK. Yeah, do you know what? When we got married, when my wife got married, we were talking about family, and all of that got put on hold when I lost my sight. We thought, I could barely look after myself, let alone look after a kid. It was only after I got my guide dog Kika that she kind of got me back to where I was before sight loss. She gave me that confidence. We're working a lot more. That genuine smile came back on my face. Before we knew it, we were expecting a baby. It was a bit of a surprise, but a good surprise, because it was one of those things that if it happens, it happens. We weren't trying, but for us, the timing was good, and we've recently just had our second baby. But the amazing thing was that my guide dog was actually in the delivery room in the hospital when both of them were born, which was fantastic. She kept my wife calm throughout the labor. And my 3-year-old was actually in the room, in the hospital room, when my 3-month-old was born. And my guide dog and my 3-year-old were sat in a corner holding each other. Mm. So it's funny how, sometimes you can plan your life out. It doesn't always go the way you planned. Sometimes it could go, exactly how we planned. We kind of went with the flow, and it seemed to work. And I haven't been more happy than I am right now. I don't think I used to appreciate everything around me when I was sighted. You just get on with things. But being visually impaired, I kind of appreciate so much more. And I love being a blind dad.
It is a huge change of perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely. As I said, you have your good days, you have your bad days, but you have those if you're sighted. Have a few more challenges if you're visually impaired, but there's nothing you can't achieve. I think you kind of put your own barriers in front of you. Sometimes you just need that motivation, or you will get there eventually. Everything takes time, and I think a lot of people push themselves too quickly as well. And they want to achieve everything very, very quickly when they've lost their sight. They want to learn Braille. They want to learn to use a white cane. But you kind of need to start walking again and start getting back on your feet again and accepting that you've lost your sight before you can actually take everything else in.
Experience is a great teacher.
Absolutely.
Following you on Twitter, and you announced that you just finished the cover for a new book that'll be coming out next year.
Yes, that's the exciting part. Yeah, so we're hoping to release in February 2020. And it's basically just the story of my life from when I was a kid to where I am now and how we've got here and how different life is. But the great thing about the book is it's not just from my perspective. My wife actually writes a chapter in the book actually saying, how difficult it was for her when I lost my sight. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people because it doesn't have to just be sight loss. It could be anything traumatic in someone's life. And it's not just them it affects, but it's the family. And people forget about that. So, when I used to go anywhere, everybody used to say, "Oh, how are you, Amit? How are you doing?" Everybody would forget about how is my wife doing. So we put a chapter in the book, and hopefully that will just give people that motivation just to kind of hang on. Things take time, and time is a great healer, but you need a rock when you're going through anything traumatic. And for me, that was my wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know a 3-year-old realized that your eyes are different.
Yes. When he was born, I did kind of think, how am I going to change nappies? How am I going to be able to take him to nursery? How am I going to take him out and about? How am I going to be a dad is what I was thinking. But you know what? He was born after I lost my sight. So he doesn't know any different. He doesn't know his daddy could see before. He just knows daddy does things in a certain way. And we realized very, very quickly that when I would change his nappies, the diapers, he would fight it. He would just lay there, let me change it, let me change his clothes, no problem at all. When my wife tried to do it, it was different. When anybody sighted tried to do it, he was different. Even now, when we're out and about, when I take him to nursery every morning and he'll hold my hand and he'll tell me when a curb's coming up. He will stay very close to me. But when it's my wife, he'd want to be a couple of meters ahead because he's a big boy now. He can walk by himself. He doesn't need to hold mummy's hand. And he does act completely different. When he wants to put his shoes on in the morning, he will give them to me in my hand. He won't just say, "Here's my shoes, help me put them on," where he's completely different to someone who's sighted. And he's always done that. He's taken a huge weight off us because he's just adapted. And it's fantastic that way.
Oh, that's really something. For some reason, I reflected back to the guy that took your cane and threw it onto the railroad track. That guy had a total different experience in life.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're at the stage now where everything is why. Daddy, why? Mummy, why?
Oh.
And yes. And unfortunately, at the moment, access refusals to department stores, to shops, to taxis with a guide dog is quite difficult. Even though the law states that we can take our assistance animals anywhere, we get refused quite a lot. I've been refused quite a few times in the last couple of weeks, but I'm hoping my son's never with me because the one conversation I don't want to have with him is when we get refused into a shop is for him to say, "Why, Daddy? Why can't we go in there like everybody else?" And the hard question is, what do I say to him? It's because your daddy's blind and we've got Kika the guide dog. So he hasn't quite grasped that. He thinks that Daddy does everything as a blind person, but I'm still his dad. He doesn't see any difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gonna be a time very soon where he'll say, "Well, Daddy, you can't see, can you?" Because I don't think he's quite understood that I can't see, which is quite strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be a great conversation.
And then there's going to be when he starts to see society's limited expectations of his dad.
Yes.
That's
it.
But you have to be strong enough and willing enough to put yourself out there to show up at these possible situations and challenge that and face them. And we can't just shy away and say, "Oh, society doesn't want me part of this part of the world," or something.
Oh, absolutely. I'm out there. I'm trying to spread the word, the message that, being blind doesn't stop you from being who you are. That it should never stop you from doing what you want to do in life. There's always going to be hurdles. There's always going to be barriers. There's always going to be someone silly to say something, ridiculous. Because when my son was born, the same day, someone said to me, "I didn't realize blind people could have kids." And this is a society we kind of have to integrate into as visually impaired people, and we just have to be the bigger person. And sometimes I have to bite my tongue and not say something I want to say, and just just walk away.
Yeah, there's another doctor in the UK I interviewed was Dr. Amy Kavanagh, and she started that campaign. Yes. What was it? Don't
grab.
Just ask. Don't grab.
Yep.
Yeah, and that got a lot of traction going around, and you got to keep that momentum going on that because it hasn't changed today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got a question for you. As someone who just went through losing eyesight, adjusted to it, and now out there campaigning, what advice would you have for, we call them transition students in the States here, when they're going from high school to college or university and to the workplace? But mostly it's a transition into adjusting to your blindness and bringing it into the workplace.
I think, well, one, you don't have to go through it on your own. If you're transitioning, I think it's great to get the experience from someone who's done it before. And also, it's so easy to say, don't stress, don't worry about it too much, because I think we're afraid of what we don't know. And sometimes it could be easier when you're moving from school to school. You may meet that right person who can inspire you. You might have the right teachers who can inspire you, who can give you help, but never be afraid to ask for help. I think that's the biggest thing. I think people don't ask for help enough, and there's plenty of people out there to help, and lots of people are willing to help as well. So I think that's my advice. Just don't feel you have to do it by yourself.
That's great advice. It's just like when someone shows you a shortcut on the iPhone or something when you're swiping around.
Yeah. That's it. That's exactly it.
Instead of doing 6 things and you can do it down to 1 move, it's like, hey, I like it. And that's how training is too. Just like the cane, just like going from cane to a guide dog. It's a different type of world for you. And yet you can't do one with you have to go through that process in that order too.
Yes.
So Dr. Amit Patel, I really want to thank you for coming on to Blind Abilities and sharing with the listeners your story, your journey. Hopefully we get to see you back in a Toyota again. And
absolutely,
I'm looking forward to your book coming out in February.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time and being willing to do this.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And you and your family have a great day and take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Gas. Come on. Get in.
The GT86 drives in a straight line along the track. Dr. Amit Patel lost his sight in 2013. He was forced to give up his career as an emergency first response driver. He hasn't been behind the wheel of a car since. Until now. Amit, along with his instructor Mark, approaches the car in slow motion. Amit is then seen at the wheel of the car, which is parked.
I see the world completely differently to how I did as a sighted person. It took me a while to actually realise that I lost my sight.
Amit is sitting in front of the parked car, addressing the camera.
I don't think I wanted to believe it for a while. I just thought, because it went so quickly, it might come back. But when you're desperate, you kind of hold on to everything. It's been 6 years or so since I've been behind the wheel of a car. And it's funny how quickly things get back to you. The sound of the engine, the gear changes, the clutch, the brake. But then driving and not knowing where you're driving, that's the insane part.
Amit practices his lap, while instructor Mark provides information regarding the route.
All I'm focused on is the instructions from my left-hand side. I'm just purely concentrating on what Mark is saying.
Off the brakes, turn in.
I kind of forget that I can't see.
We see the GT86 spin 180 degrees off the circuit's main straight.
It's crazy just to think that I'm actually doing this, and I've got an amazing instructor beside me who kind of has to be a bit nutty to do what he's doing.
Amit walks alongside the car, feeling its shape.
Being on a Top Gear test track, driving the GT86, dream come true. You always imagine doing this in a reasonably fast car. You watch Top Gear and you kind of think, oh, I can do better than that. But the fact that I'm actually doing this, but doing this as a blind person is incredible.
Amit, on a practice lap, passes a number of parked aeroplanes.
There's a guy sitting next to me, knowing full well how far he can push me and knowing my ability. It's absolutely mind-boggling that I'm actually here.
Amit executes a number of maneuvers through a series of tight bends.
I came into this thinking, if I can do 2 minutes 30, that would be amazing. The fact that we're doing it quicker than 2 minutes 30 and we're under the 2 minute mark is fantastic. But I still reckon we can get faster than that. To be behind the engine of a fast car, knowing full well I'm in control, it feels like I'm floating.
Amit, on his practice lap, drives at speed along a straight.
I feel the engine, I feel the vibrations, and you know what, I feel powerful. I feel like I did when I was a teenager back in a car.
The GT86 slowly approaches a black and white hatched start and finish line before taking off at high speed to begin Amit's timed lap.
Change. Good. Tighter. That's it, to the left.
During the lap, the car turns into a number of tight corners, and Amit is shown turning the wheel and changing gear.
Driving the GT86, I can feel everything through my fingers, through my feet. I can hear the car, I can hear the engine, I can feel the power.
The GT86 crosses the finish line.
Come on! Get in! Time for the final run was 1:46. Amazing, mate. Really well done.
The sun sets on the circuit. The GT86 is parked on the finish line before Amit addresses the camera once more in front of the car.
Blindness is always there, it's always going to be in my life, but I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, I'm blind, what do? I just get on with it. And it's easy to say now, but believe me, 5 years ago it wasn't.
Amit is congratulated by his wife Seema, son Abby, and guide dog Kika.
I have an amazing wife who put arms around me. She gave me hugs when I needed it. She helped me up when I needed to get up. And she gave me the motivation. She gave me the love that's got me to where I am. It's made us who we are. And from that, we have an amazing young son, 2.5-year-old boy. In my head, I can see a smile on his face. I'm hoping he's proud of what his dad's achieved, but I don't want him ever to grow up thinking that he's not able to do this. If anything, I want him to grow up and think being blind hasn't stopped my dad from achieving things. We do it differently, but we do it together. And that's what it's all about.
A caption reads, "Start your impossible."
Bit of gas, go on, bit of gas, over the finish. Come on! Get in!
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter @blindabilities. A big shout out to Chichow for his beautiful music. You can follow Chichow on Twitter at @LChichow. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and until next time, bye-bye.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the realities of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter @blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.